I'm struggling for words on this one. Part of the reason is that in my conversation with Evan Turner, I learned so many things about life. And they were lessons that to some degree I had known internally, but had never actually pulled out and spoken them. And as I sat there and I listened to Evan, I was amazed. I was amazed that this 18-year-old young man has the perspective on life and on work and on business and on everything that he has. And I sat there as I talked to him thinking, man, I wish that I could have thought like that when I was 18. My life, granted, my life is good now, but it would be very different if I had his mentality when I was 18. So going into this interview, I had hoped that I could talk to Evan, kind of get into understanding his head. And, because I am who I am, thinking, hey, this 18-year-old guy, he probably could use some wisdom. And it was very humbling to have it turned on its head, to find out that this 18-year-old young man knows a little bit more about life in a few areas than I do. And yeah, it's not every day that happens. And that is one of the very many reasons that Evan is such an extraordinary person. I hope that you enjoy this. It was definitely a good one. Talk to you soon. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the barn. Oh, wait, no, sorry. I always wanted to be a carnival barker. I feel like it would be pretty fantastic. The ringmaster in the center of the circus. Have you been to a circus?
I don't think so. No, I don't.
Oh my God. I'm so old.
I'll blame COVID.
I took the kids to see, this was years ago. We took them to see the Barnum and Bailey Circus before they disbanded. It was here. And I remember seeing the Barnum and Bailey Circus the same place, but separated by 35 years. And it was so cool. But I think my kids were like, what is going on here? It's like, why is that elephant on one foot? So, yeah, man, so funny. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we are here with Evan Turner, aka Heads Up FPV. Out of curiosity, that's right, Heads Up is Heads Up Racing, right?
Yeah, well, Heads Up, I guess that's where you're going towards, where Heads Up came from.
Yeah, where did Heads Up come from?
Embarrassing story. One of the first times I flew a drone, it was with the guy who actually got me into FPV. His name is Sam Pankratz. He's 2 years older than me, and he was and a couple grades older than me in my own school. And I'd flown RC airplanes with him for a long time, and he got into racing drones. To take a long story, make it shorter, we were flying his FPV drone. It was one of the first times I'd ever flown it. And I was going to shoot this gap between two trees, and I ended up hitting him in the face with said drone.
Are you serious?
I'm not kidding. That is not made up. There's pictures of him with the scars, and
oh, that is amazing.
And he still is one of my best friends. I think that shows if you found a true friend when you can hit him in the face with a drone, and then they're still your friend afterwards. So, right. Props to him on that. But then we were going to our first race a few months later because I'd credit that a lot to where I am in drone racing is I hit somebody in the face and I decided I probably should get better at drone racing so I can fly a drone and not hit someone. So I practiced really, really hard. And then we were going to our first race and I couldn't think of an FPV name. And he was like, it should be Heads Up. So I felt that given circumstances, he had the right to give me my name. And it's stuck ever since.
That is amazing. I did not know.
Yeah, not many people know.
It came from. Well, now they do.
They do now. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is I hit myself in the head.
No way.
I did. It's funny because it comes up like every third or fourth episode. Yeah, I was in the front yard, had no earthly idea what I was doing, was flying, and my front yard's not gigantic at all. And came around a tree, almost wrapped it up into a tree. managed to not put it in the tree, came around another tree, and had this moment of complete disconnection where I was like, why is that dude in the middle of my yard?
Oh my gosh.
And then I realized it was me, and I had forgotten where I parked my body. And so I ended up hitting myself right here. I had enough time and enough wherewithal to disarm.
That's good.
But now, did you hit your buddy straight
Arm.
on?
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, so I was going very slow. This was 2017. And it was with a drone. I remember it so very well. It's called an HMB 235. It was made out of G10, and it's HMB stood for Hold My Beer, because it was supposed to be unbreakable.
And it was.
And it was. Drone was fine. Drone was fine. But yeah, I came in, and I eventually disarmed. But he has little scars in it. It was right in his lips. I didn't touch his eyes, his nose, anything, but just a couple cuts down his mouth. Yeah. But he's all good now. He still has one little scar right here that he always likes to show me. But he was all good, safe and sound, and he's an aerospace engineering student at UT now, so he's doing fine.
Awesome.
No brain injuries.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you know what? And I will say that one experience probably taught me some of the most important things, because like, I got cut and I didn't realize I had gotten cut. The drone had been the drone, it was disarmed, right? And it actually impacted on my goggles.
Oh wow.
But one of the front left arm, a prop just sliced right through my scalp, and I didn't even know I was bleeding. And then I mean, like, in the video, like, I had an HD cam, like, I'm laughing, I'm picking it up, and I'm looking at it, and I have no idea that there is blood now starting to stream down my face. Oh my gosh. I walked in to wash my hands, and as I was leaning down, these drops of blood started falling. No. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And I look up, and I got this slice, but I don't even know if you can see it anymore. But, so I mean,
that's crazy.
I hit myself, and the crazy thing is that, like, before that, I would play games in the yard with my kids where they were trying to shoot it. You know, and I'm like,
no, you probably should hold off on that.
Yeah, because I didn't really know how to fly.
That's great. Well, we have something in common, I guess.
Yes. Well, there you go. I guess I could be heads down.
Yeah, there you go. So, I don't think that one's taken, so I think you can take it.
Very good. So, you know, as folks that have been following the show recently know, I've been kind of diving into sort of the business side. And as it so happens, you are now the proud owner of an FPV business. Tell us a little bit about 533.
So, yeah, I own 533, logos right there. And what 533 is, or what it started as, was I was 16 at the time, and I was in a position in my career as a FPV racing pilot, a drone racing pilot, that people wanted to start making heads up branded products. And I knew nothing about business. I had no aspirations to know anything about business, but I just thought it'd be cool. I was a 16-year-old that thought it would be cool for someone to go buy a heads up motor, a heads up frame. And I just thought that'd be cool. And,
this is licensed branding, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And I mean, I had no idea of what to expect as far as like money wise, and like I had people offer like, well, oh yeah, we'll give you $5 for every frame you sell with your name on it. We'll brand you and do all this, whatever. And I had no idea, and I was all for it. I was going to go for it. And of course, when you do something like that, that company takes the reins and they do the entire thing. They do the marketing for you. They do the customer support for you. They do everything for you. And you just sit there, they're the pretty face on the box, and you sell for them. Okay. And you get, of course, some in return, but they're doing some heavy lifting on their side. So it's a fair deal in my opinion. But, of course, me being in the position I was in, if I went and did my own thing, I could, for one, learn a lot more. None of this was motivated by money whatsoever. I could learn. I love learning new things, and if you follow me on any of my social media, you'll see that I'm getting my pilot's license right now, and I'm trying to learn dude, I love doing new things, and just learning a business. I thought, that'd be something cool to do, and I was actually motivated largely and very, very largely by Serge at Pyroflip. And Trappy from Team Black Sheep, and it was a crazy. It never would have happened without the World Drone Cup in 2019 in Turkey. And that was a very interesting event because it was really the perfect culmination because so I worked with my partner in the company who's Armando, and he had been responsible for building all of my drones in the past for about the past year at this point in 2019 that is. And he was my fleet manager. He built all my drones, maintained all my drones, and we got to the point where people were wanting to and I won't name the companies who reached out or whatever, but there were companies who wanted to make a heads-up frame, and they wanted to help work on it. But Armando is a very incredibly talented engineer, responsible for all of the amazing things that have come out of 533. And he said he had a couple ideas for a frame, and he popped out. I had no idea what to expect. And next thing you know, the Switchback, which was our very first product,
it's a very
popped
cool
out.
frame, too.
Yeah. Or the first prototype is what popped out, and I took that to the World Drone Cup in Turkey. And it was the first debut of that frame. Nobody had ever seen it before. And it was tied. It was kind of an interesting thing because it was tied to no company. Everybody's like, who makes that? How do I get one? I love it. And it was tied to no one. It was like, I genuinely got this cut from like a guy in like New York. And I don't know who's going to make it. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I don't know anything about it. There's like 10 in the world, and they're all in my hand right now. That was really, it created a lot of hype, I'd say, because all of this was on accident. It was not like I went out there and I was like, oh, I'm going to do this and people are going to love this. And it was just totally organic and generic, or easy, or not easy, but just organic, I guess is the best word you could call it. I was just going out there, no incentive to try and make frames or money or anything. I just wanted a good frame for me to race and continue racing at the best of my ability. And so everybody was all excited about it. And Serge from Pyro was there at the event, and so was Trappy. And I told them they were like because they saw all the hype around it. I got top qualifier at the event, so that of course created hype around it. Everybody wants to know what kind of frame and stuff you're running. And they kind of asked like, so what are your plans? And I told them that I was going to work with X and Y company, and they were going to give me a couple bucks, and they were going to be doing it all, and I was going to have my name on it.
I can only imagine what Trappy said to that.
Well, and they were really excited that I was going to do something like that. But Serge, what kind of started it, he was like, I think that maybe you should, but I think he said, what if you did it yourself? Like, what if you, and I didn't know what he meant by that. I was like, well, what if you, and that's kind of really one of the cool places that I was at, is I already had connections to all of these people through sponsors and so forth in the past. And they were like, well, what if you got a couple frames cut yourself, brought them to your basement, and then just shipped them out to retailers and make a couple bucks? And I was like, that, and then, I was like, that'd be cool. It sounds like a lot of work. And, I didn't know what to expect at all. And Serge and Trappy really, really harped on me throughout that entire week. Like, maybe that, and I kind of I was like, maybe that would be kind of cool. And that would be to have my own company. I didn't even think about it that way. I was just like, it's going to be Heads Up Racing or something. We'll just send out a couple frames here and there, and people will like it. And I just thought that'd be cool. So I so vividly remember flying back from Turkey, and I was sitting in the airport. I think I just got to Washington Dulles Airport, which is where you usually fly in, coming from that side of the world. And I got on a phone call with Armando, and I wish so bad I'd pay so much money to have it recorded now, because I remember I was like, I think it'd be really cool if we did this ourselves, and me and you could kind of do this together. And and then it kind of sparked of like, well, we kind of worked through some prototyping, and then we decided we were going to launch this first product at the MultiGP Nationals. And again, another really, really great spot of where I was that I'm in the racing community. I'm best friends with like all of the top pilots who race. So I kind of hit them up. Hey, I have a good frame. Hey, do you want to fly this? I'll send you some for free. And it's your buddy. You want to help out your buddy. And that combined with them all being top pilots, combined with me also flying and winning that year with that frame, and having the majority of the top 16 all running that frame. And it launching from, because I remember the first day, we launched on November 14th, 2019, which was the first day of Nationals, MultiGP Nationals in 2019. And everybody, all the top pilots showed up with this new frame and about this new company, 533, and nobody knew anything about it. They just knew that it was, all these guys were running it, and it was a company ran by me. They didn't even know the name. And then we launched it that night, started the Facebook page that night, Instagram that night. Everything started that day. And it has been a whirlwind since then, but it all started Turkey that year, and me just, those people, just a couple people. It's crazy how I think in life, how just one or two people can say just a few words that can completely alter the direction of your life. And I'm so grateful to Trappy and to Serge for doing that. All the other people who have helped me throughout the way, getting to where we are now. But just starting it off in that very beginning, people telling me that yeah, it's a possibility, and yes, we're willing to help you, is really what made it possible. And then I am forever grateful to those guys to have getting me to start it. And I wouldn't trade any of the experiences I've had for the world.
You know, I guess one of the things that I keep coming, this is something I keep coming back to in all of this series, which is that there is oftentimes wisdom in those that have gone before you.
Yeah.
Right. And it sounds like Serge and Trappy just fed it into you.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Like, so, I mean, when you sit down and you think about, you know, especially because I think you said Trappy was talking to you about it, but Serge must have said something specific. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was, I don't know why it was so like compelling to me, or why it interested me so much, because another thing that I like to kind of talk about was that in this time of my life, so I've never been like the world's greatest student in the world. And I never really, and they always talk about do what you love and do this, that, and the other. And I was in such a weird spot, and drone racing itself, we didn't know what it would be, or drone, the industry itself, back in 2019, which is, I mean, only like a year and a half ago, which is kind of crazy to think. But then I had gotten to where I was in drone racing. It was a really cool spot, but it wasn't a career. It wasn't a job. And when you asked me what I wanted to be, I didn't know. And I really had no idea. And I was kind of like lost in a sense at that age, and nobody knows what they want to do at 16. I mean, not many people know what they want to do when they're 26, but
or 43
or 43. Yeah.
Right.
But I really didn't know. And, Serge he just said, like, you can learn to be a businessman, and just and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that entailed, but it just seemed interesting. And like, the more I've got into this, I've learned a incredible amount, and I've gained so much respect for, like you said, the people who have gone before you and the road that they've already traveled. And he just kind of told me, like, yeah, this is something he kind of told, like, I kind of started to pick up on his story of how he came from Lebanon. I believe it's a country. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but I believe it's Lebanon. Came from there, and he truly like came like almost with nothing, and with his family, and started his own business, which ended up being Pyroflip. But he started from nothing, and just, he had a passion for it. He loved it. It started out as helicopters, and he loved that. And he was able to turn that into something just by passion alone. And it wasn't that it's not always going to go great. It's not. But when you have that passion for something like that, nobody can convince you not to do it. And I've said this in other shows before, but something my dad always told me, because I had, as a young age, wanted to be a doctor. I mean, I think everybody goes through, oh, I'll be a doctor.
Well,
both my parents are doctors. Yeah, both my parents are.
Both your parents are.
And the thing he told me is, because I wasn't sure, was that, because people say they want to be doctors, and then they watch Grey's Anatomy or whatever, but then when you actually get into it, it's so incredibly difficult. And the amount of respect I have for both my parents and all the things they did to get where they are today is incomprehensible. But they said that the people that should be doctors are the people you can't convince not to be. And yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I think that is so true amongst so many things in life. Is they ask, what should I do this, or should I do this? And if I can convince you not to do it, then you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. But the people who should be running the businesses, people who should be the doctors, are, no matter how much that person comes up and tells you it's a bad idea, and no matter how much that person comes up and tells you that it's going to fail for X, Y, and Z reasons, you still do it. That's what you should do. And that kind of is what I felt. And I had such a passion for FPV, and it's been my hobby, and RC remote control things in general since I was 6 have been what I love to do for so long. And when he told me that, and I kind of learned about his story and what he was able to do and accomplish, loving every second of it, and coming to Turkey and supporting his business by going and traveling and doing this, that was such like the dream almost. And I loved how he was able to do that and support the community and do that in something that he loved. Because if you took away 533 from me right now, and you took away any dollar that I'd ever made from drone racing ever, I would go right back outside, and probably to calm down from how mad I was about that fly, because I enjoy it so much. And that is just something that not many people, and as I've gotten to where I'm now, I guess I started to realize more and more how fortunate I am to be there, and to take what is I love so much and turn it into a a job or a potential career, even if it doesn't last a lifetime, but just something I can do for right now, being at the age I am, learning as much as I am right now. It's something I wouldn't trade for the world. And it was for, yeah, like I said, those people in the beginning, and also a local guy who actually helped get into FPV. His name is Matthew Hill, and he was very, very influential into helping me get into the business and making sure it happened. And just those few people, that's all it takes to completely alter someone's, to go from, I don't know what I want to do, to getting kind of roped into it. And now it's something I just am so thankful. I couldn't be more happy.
There are going to be so many people that watch this, and they're going to be envious of the fact that you are 18 years old,
yeah,
and are already diving into your passion.
Yeah.
And like, even for me, like I've sat back, like, we're talking about what do you want to be when you grow up? I just fell sideways into my career, right? Like one day it was like, well, I'm really good with computers. First it was biology because I wanted to be a doctor, but then OChem. And it wasn't even the chemistry, it was a freaking math. Oh,
yeah.
God. And then eventually it was like, I get through my biology degree. It was in evolution. It was pretty cool. DNA, genetics, stuff like that. And I was like, well, what can I do with this? Not a damn thing. And so eventually I was like, well, I'm good at computers. I guess I'll go do computer science. So I got a master's in computer science. And, for the past 10 years, I've worked for companies in Silicon Valley. And yet, not until I started doing this thing did I realize what I probably would have really been passionate about.
Yeah.
And there is this moment where you sit back and you think, well, first off, there's two things that happen. Number one is the realization that the reason that you may not like what you're doing isn't because you don't like what you're doing. It's because you're burning time.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm 40 years old. I'm halfway through my life. Maybe.
Yeah.
And every day that I work in here, every day that I sit in here and I do things, and it's not even like my job is bad, right? Like it's pretty entertaining. It's pretty fun. But at the same time, I'm like, I would like to do something different, something that I can throw my whole passion into. And for you to be able to find that at 18, even if, like you said, it's only a little bit of time, like what if it only goes 5 or 6 years, which I suspect it'll go longer. But what if it does? You've gained so much in that 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. And I kind of going off of what you were talking about, I love learning. I love talking to older people. And I think that is something a lot of people look, a lot of people, they kind of miss out on, especially my age. Like, oh, I don't want to talk to old people, whatever. And I I'm talking like people like retirement age, and I love talking to them and like, what if you could have done something different? And I think that's cool for anything in life. If once somebody does something, and if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? And it seems that like so many people are afraid of what people think of them, and so afraid of making a change, and that the risk. And I mean, that's in anything. There's risk in doing all of this. But the biggest thing I've noticed in anyone who's 18 or whatever age out there right now, I think what we don't realize, and I've only started to realize recently, is that once you become 25, 30, making a complete change in your career path, or putting the thousands of dollars into a business, or taking the risk, quitting your job and going to do something else, that doesn't affect just you anymore. That affects your wife, your kids, your dog, your rabbit, whatever. It's not just you anymore. You have so much more riding on you. But when you're our age, when you're 18, when you make that, if you go broke, you're just like every other broke 18-year-old in the world. And it's just you. And that's why I think that is the perfect time for all of us to kind of take those mistakes, because when you're 50 years old and you didn't do that, and now you're like, well, I want to change my career now. It's like, now you have all that stuff riding on you. And then if it fails, and you don't want your kids to be eating ramen noodles for the rest of their life, you want the best for them. So if you can take those risks, try new things, and go, not be afraid of what people will think if you fail business, or not be afraid of what people will think if you're a professional drone racer, then that is what I think that is so, so valuable. And not many people understand that. And you can learn so much from talking to the older people, and every single one of them, everyone they'll go back and think, well, if I would have done this, then I could have been so much happier, and I could have made more money, and I could have done this, being happier. And it was just, they were afraid to change. Because when you get so far, it's like, well, I've made it this far. It's too late to go now. But if you graduate college and you think, well, that degree was useless, then just go try something else. Go do exactly what you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about it and people can't convince you not to do it, it will work out. I can assure you of that. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned and kind of tried to tell other people as I've worked my way through here.
There's a have you ever heard of the book The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so you should read this book first off.
Mm-hmm.
You will love it. It's effectively about using your passion to build something that is yours and that you don't necessarily have to continue to dump, all of your time into.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things he runs you through this thought exercise, right? And the thought exercise is this. Okay. Visualize your worst nightmare. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so for me, if I were to visualize my worst nightmare, it would be that I would lose my job. As a result of losing my job, we would be financially insecure. Mm-hmm. As part of being financially insecure, it would then affect my kids because that thing affected me when I was younger. Yeah. And what's funny is I'm not even worried about things like losing the house or the one car that we still have a note on. Hmm. And the more that I really thought about it, I was like, I'm actually more worried about the psychological effects of the disaster scenario, right? My wife totally flipping out and being uncertain and the anxiety that comes with all that. And then Ferriss says, okay, now that you've imagined the worst, right? And to be fair, the absolute worst is that I die and leave my family destitute somehow, right? But assuming I don't die, he says, now what does it take to rebuild? Mm-hmm. And I just sat back and I thought about it and I was like, I could have a job in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. I could replace all of my income with the skills I have in no time because of what I do, because of the demand that's in my field. Mm-hmm. Even if I did lose my job, even if we went a couple, 3 months without me having a job, I could get back into it. And all of a sudden it was like, well, this thing that was so scary 5 minutes ago, now doesn't really seem all that scary. Like that was my worst case scenario right there. Mm-hmm. And, you talk about saying, oh, well, I'm 18. I can afford to take this risk. And what's very interesting is that in the 4-Hour Work Week, Ferriss says you can't not afford to take that risk. Mm-hmm. Basically saying, do you, he calls retirement the worst option left, where it's like, you're going to work all your life to build up wealth that may carry you until you die, but you won't be able to enjoy it. You know, like I look at my dad who just retired and then went back to work. And I was like, Dad, you ever think about traveling or anything? He's like, I can't. My knees are too messed up. I couldn't walk a lot of places. And I'm like, I want to be able to enjoy that now.
Yeah, totally.
And that is effectively what that book is about. But it's really resonated with me because I'm like, I'm looking around. We've got a nice house, right? Like we've got good things. But if I could pack us up into an RV and everybody work remote, do school remote, I'll work remote, I would love to, RV around the country. Right?
Yeah.
Stop at the Grand Canyon, pull out all the drones. I've never seen the Grand Canyon. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
And so I think what's interesting about the place that you are right now is you did listen to wisdom, right? Which honestly is not super usual in kids your age. I say kids, I apologize.
No, you're okay.
But young men your age, according to my oldest son, I may be the dumbest person on the planet.
We go through a phase. Yeah.
Right. No, it's really not that bad. He's such a good kid. But it's funny. I was at the retirement party for one of my neighbor's fathers. And this guy was a big deal. He was the athletic director at William and Mary for 30 some years.
Wow.
He brought them from being virtually a no-name sports school to being a respected name. I think they've named buildings after him. And I mean, if he walks onto William and Mary campus and he says his name, people just are like, oh. He's also like 7.5. Like, dude is giant. I think he's like 6'8". He was an NBA basketball player. And then, anyways, wild story. And we all call him Cheese. That's because apparently that's what somebody called him one day. And I said, we're at his retirement party, and I'm the same way as you. I'm like, I would love to get the wisdom. So I said, Cheese, if you could go back and do it all over again, what would you do? And he goes, man, and he sat down, he goes, I wouldn't travel as much, and I would spend far more time with the people I loved as opposed to the people I was trying to impress. And, that spoke to me at that point, because I was currently, jet setting around the world in my capacity as a developer relations engineer for a Silicon Valley company. And I'd go to London and San Francisco, And I remember, like, when he said that, there was this part of me that was like, maybe you need to slow down. Maybe you need to travel less and go spend more time with your family. And I ended up doing it. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made. So Serge, Serge spoke into that thing. That thing into you. So you land, you get started. Let me ask you this question. You had your name, right? Your name, Heads Up, Evan Turner. Do you think you could have done what you did without your name?
That, I believe I'm very, very fortunate to have been in the position I was in the industry. And it's not that somebody can't build a successful, and I think Armando and I have kind of talked about this in the past. I don't think I could have done anything that I did without Armando, and it would have been much more difficult for Armando to have done what he did without myself. And it's
and for what it's worth, I'm not trying to diminish Armando's contribution because the frame stood up.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
There is not a single racer that is going to go race your frame just because your name is on it.
Exactly.
Right. So his work was the basis, but then
it was.
How many of the top 16 were flying your frame at Worlds?
This year, I think we had about 50% of, so one of every two people were flying the Switchback. And I think it was about 30 to 40 flying our motors. And so that was huge. And I mean, next year we want 60 and 50. So we don't want to stop. But I think we're finding someone like that in a business, finding a partner like that. Because another thing that's very, very important to understand is that you're never going to be the best at everything. You're never going to be. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. There's pros and cons to everything. And I think, and they say, I kind of think it's funny because like they say our opposites attract, and they say that in life. And all of my strengths or whatever, and I have my weaknesses as well. And Armando and I is kind of coincide to where he is so incredibly talented in all the designs he does and the engineering he does and the problem solving he's able to do. He's has multiple engineering degrees. He's one of the smartest people I know, one of the wisest people I know. I respect him more than just about anybody in the world. And combining that alongside where I was in the community, and for him to be able to get all that out through myself being the outreach, it really did make for the perfect storm, at least from what I could tell. So I think, like I said, I don't think I could have ever have done this without him. And I think, I honestly do think he could have gotten to where we have today without me. I really do, because he is so awesome. He's very highly respected within the community. But I think we were able to get to where, we've been in business for about 1.5 years, and to have the numbers we did at the World Championships and like after 1.5 years, that's kind of unheard of, I think. And I think we were, again, so I guess when you think about any business ever, what they do is you have your CEO or whatever, and you have your people, your product designers, and then they have to go DM the fastest pilot, or they have to go DM like your influencers, whatever, will offer you X amount of dollars and you fly our stuff, X, Y, and Z. And it's just like I was that person. You want to find the best person. You want to get their name on your products because people will like it. But because I was in that situation where I had just won the Worlds that year, and I didn't have to go DM that person because I was already within the community. And then I'm not only motivated by the couple dollars I'll get for every frame I sell, I mean, I'm genuinely shipping these packages out 2 floors below where I'm sitting right now. And
Yeah.
it's what I was passionate about. And I'm not trying to, the Heads Up brand was already what it was, the brand. And we use that Heads Up brand to kickstart what 533 is. But now we're trying to grow the brand of 533. We're starting to move away because as I get older or as I progress and as I do X, Y, and Z things, and I think that's one of the bigger things I realized or tried to tell myself is in any professional sport, anything like that, the best is there's always the next person in line. Okay. And I had made it to that peak. Okay. And I knew I wasn't going to be there forever. I fully understand that. And I'm going to work as hard as I can to stay near the top, but I know it's not going to be there. So instead of building the brand around me, I want to separate the brand and I want to be the guy in the behind the scenes. And I don't want you to think of, I like Evan's products, I like 533's products, because that doesn't matter if I'm getting last place at every single race and both my thumbs get cut off and I can never fly again because you don't like Evan, you don't like Heads Up, you don't like Armando, you like 533 because you know that those are going to be the products that they're good products, and that's what we make. We make top of the line products, and we have top of the line racers behind them who are not even racers. We're now moving into other kind of forms of the hobby, but that's how it started. And that was I guess the business model that accidentally we created was that instead of going through another people, we had all the pieces. We had the engineer, we had the influence, we had the pilot, and we had the connections. That was another big thing is if we needed a favor from somebody, I already had those companies that we needed a favor from. I had talked to them for so long and I had worked with them and like getting, for example, biggest example would be the Tiny Trainer canopy. It's an injection molded piece of plastic. And if you go online and search injection mold Tiny Trainer canopy, like if you want to try and just make an injection molded part, you will find a million Chinese websites they'll try and scam you and whatever. But I knew Zong from HQ. I had worked with him and been a supported pilot from him for years, and he does injection molding. And I just, hey, we want this, and he got us a great deal on them. We worked with him, and that just having that connection that I had made through not like burning bridges with sponsors, trying to keep a good name within the industry, came back and really, really helped me in the now. So there was so many things that played in my favor, and I also credit my parents, my father a lot to this, in that I found how important relationships are within they always come back. And, working with sponsors, especially in the beginning, as I was young, like this was back when I was flying RC airplanes, my dad really, really harped. They're like, it's very important if you leave a sponsor, or if you're talking to anybody in the community, wherever the community is so small, even just like in your town, talking to somebody at a football game, but especially in this community, everybody's so tight knit. Make one person mad, and that can affect what everyone thinks of you. And if you treat everyone with respect, and even if it doesn't work out, if you can do that and keep that good name behind you, then all those people will still want to help you. So yes, I've left sponsors. Yes, I've had things not work out with X, Y, and Z people, but I've always, just genuinely because of my parents, always wanted to end on a good note with them. I never want to end of like, screw you. I always want to end on like it was great. I appreciate everything you've done and so forth. And that always has come back, especially now, 100% of the time, that has worked in my favor. When I could have said, I hate you, go die, I ended with something else. And that has came back to now being in the position I am, has helped me tremendously. And anyone out there who's trying to do something like that, if you're going out there and pissing people off, it'll always come back to haunt you 100% of the time. But if you're going out there making people happy, it's not always going to work out. Like everybody knows that. But if you can end on a good note like that, it will come back to help you 100% of the time, not just in building a business or in drone racing, but in life 1,000,000% of the time. And I have really seen that firsthand.
So as you've told me before, and I think you told me today, you took most of your winnings and invested it into 533.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Were the winnings that you invested or the name that you had made for yourself worth more?
What do you mean by that?
So, you know, you were just talking about like always protecting the relationship, always making sure that, you know, effectively if you left something, people weren't going to turn around and be like, man, that dude Evan Turner is such a jerk, right? You were able to effectively do a gigantic guerrilla marketing campaign with this brand new frame, because all of a sudden 50% of the top racers were flying it.
Yeah.
Right. If you wanted to go find out what all the fast racers were racing, well, probably by market share, it was your frame.
Yeah.
And that's based on your name. Right. So
Yeah.
do you think that the winnings that you invested, which I'm sure were not insignificant, or the name that you had built for yourself, which one do you think was more valuable?
Oh, 100%. You can buy the products. Every money, you can find money. You can't buy the brand. You can't buy the relationships. You can't buy your reputation. You can't buy a reputation. Nowhere, money can't buy that. And I think that the reputation was so much more valuable to the company getting to where it was today than any dollar amount. I mean, yes, as you said, I have 100% funded 533 myself through my race winnings, through partnerships with other companies. I had saved all the money, not bought the newest iPhone every year, bought a new fancy car when I turned 16. Right. Again, through my parents and other people's support, or like, I guess, not telling me, kind of guidance. And I had the money saved up. I had no clue what I was going to do with it. And then this kind of opportunity came to where, hey, if you put, like, we need to buy this many motors, we need to buy this many frames. And again, like I said, was completely self-funded by myself. And my parents, I know for a fact, and I know people in the community, if you walk up to them saying, hey, I want to start a business, and if you give me X thousands of dollars, I'll give you 20% of the company, like that 100% you could have found. But again, like you were saying, or like I was saying earlier, is you can't buy reputation. You can't buy those types of relationships. And that 100% has been more valuable to me to growing the company than the money that I was able to put down early in the business. That is, again, anybody can find money, but having that reputation and relationships was 1,000,000% more valuable than that ever could have been.
I agree with your answer. All right. Last question on this topic.
Yep.
We're 5 years in the future.
Yep.
There's two possibilities.
Yep.
533 is doing fantastic, or 533 is gone.
Yeah.
What is Evan doing in both of those scenarios?
Well, I would say,
I want to say that this is a complete cop-out question.
Okay.
Like this is the question you always, what do you want to do in 5 years?
Yeah, I know.
And so there is definitely there's a BS aspect to this question. So I'm not asking you to tell me what you want to do in 5 years. I'm setting the scenario of, okay, if and let's change it a little bit. The company's still around, it's doing well, and you're looking back, versus the company's no longer there and you're still looking back. What do you think you're going to look back on?
So I guess we'll start with, if the company's there, and I think this is a very interesting question, because being how old I am, I'm 18. That
is a significant portion of your life.
I just started. Yeah, exactly. That is, but as well as the fact that I'm about to graduate high school. So everyone, I get to ask that question just about every day. You graduate high school, what college are you going to? What this? What? So I'm not going to college, first of all.
Good.
Currently. And so yeah, I get that question a lot. And I mean, there's pressure from, like, I mean, when it's an awkward conversation every time, because all my buddies, oh, I'm going to Auburn, I'm going to UT, I'm going to this, I'm studying aerospace engineering. What are you studying, Evan? And I mean, they know what I do, and they of course think it's really cool. But I don't have an extra 4 years to think about what I want to do. I'm going into it knee deep right now. So I'd say 5 years from now, and the company's doing well, by that point we will have been well, first of all, 50% of companies fail in the first 5 years that they are started. So that would mean we're past that. That means we are more successful than 50% of companies ever made, which would, for one, be saying something. But we really don't know where FPV will be in 5 years. We didn't know where it would be 2 years ago when we talked, or I guess about a year ago this time last year. But if it's still around, if 533 is still around, and I really hope it is, then I would say I probably will not be where I am in drone racing. And what I would really want to pursue more is to grow the industry as much as possible and to make it as accessible as possible, but also to be able to support it in the community behind it. I know how much drone racing has changed my life and been beneficial to me, and I see how beneficial it could be to other kids my age. I know a lot of kids, they're kind of lost, so they get played in video games and they get to this, and they don't have a hobby or a passion. But I think, not that I think everybody should be a drone racer, but I think that drone racing in general has so many gateways to get people interested in new things, whether that's cinematography and you learn about cameras, or programming and you want to learn how to make better flight software and learn how to PID tune and so forth, or PCB design, and you want to learn how to design things like ESCs and flight controllers, or like how a propeller works and the aerospace behind that, or gaming, you get into esports and learn that the business behind that. And then on top of that, just being in drone racing, and also just the social aspect behind it, because I think that is where another valuable thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is how important being able to talk to someone is, and how important being able to be social and connect with someone and personable, how valuable that is. And that's not a skill they're going to go teach you in school and you can take a speech class or whatever, but just through repetition and putting yourselves in those scenarios, being ever since I was a kid, I've been going to these events, and I've been at 15, I was having microphones shoved in my face on television in God knows what country, and being put in those scenarios has really kind of crafted me into someone who's very comfortable speaking in front of people, very comfortable speaking. I don't want to think of myself as a salesman, but if you want to talk to someone and present something, then I am very, very comfortable doing that just because I've done it so much. And that is such a valuable skill. If you get interviewed, or if somebody comes up to you and wants you to tell them about your product, like somebody, tell me about yourself, tell me about your product. If you can really spit off and be comfortable in that situation, that is so much more valuable, because if that person, oh, wow, that's really incredible, tell me more, talk to me, like I would like you to work with me. That is how you build those relationships, and that is how you get those really cool opportunities, is just that first initial impression. And I've learned, I mean, I'm not the most, I guess now, but I wasn't the most talkative kid in school before. And through drone racing and being in those scenarios and meeting all those people, and what frame are you running? What is this? Great flight. How do you mess up? Like, you messed up. What are you going to do next time, and so forth. Being in those social situations has taught me so much and given me so much, I guess, value to the company, but also just in general, of being able to, I guess, perfect that skill. And something that is not the most common thing nowadays is like people who are very comfortable in that situation and who have experienced it at my age is being able, having that opportunity in the past to have experienced all this firsthand, and not talk about it at school or in a public speech class, but to be in those scenarios in real life. So that is, I guess, looking back on it, if the company's still there. If the company's not there, then I would say I'll be looking back on, and as I kind of talked to you, I guess I kind of intertwined the two, but I feel I've learned
the same answer.
Yeah, it really is. And I've learned so much, and I would not trade that for the world. And I guess, like I was saying, I'm not going to college, and that's a very, very difficult decision, but I know how much I've learned from doing this and being away from, all those things that I just told you are not things that I learned in my English class. Those are things that I learned out there, and those are valuable to me in real life. And I think that if I continue to pursue that and I continue doing what I'm doing now, that I can go even further and make the most of all those things, and doing that while being in love with what I'm doing. I couldn't trade that for the world. And if it fails, and if drone racing disappears and whatnot, I have all those skills, and if I know Zong, who injection molds tiny trainer canopies, he can injection mold me like car keys, whatever, someday, and making new products or doing whatever. I just, all those relationships I've built up and so forth is something I really wouldn't trade for the world. And if you told me I'd be bankrupt in 5 years, and I would tell you, sign me up, but I'll make the most of all 5 years to start over, like you said, and go from there with everything that I know now.
It's super funny on the repetition portion, especially with public speaking, but this is true in anything. And it was actually flying FPV that drove this home for me. the expectation that you're going to stand up and knock it out of the park the first time is wrong. Period.
Yeah.
Most or almost all people do not knock it out of the park the first time they do it,
Yeah,
whatever
sure.
it is. Now I've always been comfortable in front of people, right? I am to the point where I don't get stage fright. I kind of like get super excited going out in front of, you know, I did this giant presentation for Yahoo at one point in front of like 1,500 people, 500 of which were media, and made a joke referencing myself as Beyonce right in the middle of it. And thought I was going to get fired, and it turns out it went over perfectly well. but you don't even for as comfortable as I am, if you had taken my first experience in presenting had been in front of 1,500 people for my company, I would have been terrified. Yeah. And John Eska, who he's Johnny Five. Do you know? Have you? Okay. So John Eska, there's a group of us that have kind of started, you know, cohorting together to a degree. We're all about the same level in terms of creators and whatnot. And he was telling us recently, he said, you know, I've been doing these live streams and I really like it. And he said, I thought I was going to be terrible at it. And he started talking about how he hates public speaking, and he thought this was just going to be like public speaking. And I was like, John, you've talked to a camera every day for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. A live stream is no different. And going from a live stream to a live audience is not that much further out. Yeah. And it was and I know for him, it was just the repetition, talking. Yeah. That did it for him. So I agree. Like, just go out, get the practice, right? You're going to do things and they're going to fail, and it'll be okay. So the final thing on this topic, and this is so funny to me because your dad and I were actually messaging back and forth while you were in Turkey. And I remember, like, as you started talking, but as soon as you said you were there with Serge, I was like, oh, I remember that. And your dad and I were having this conversation, and you were like, what, 16 or 17 at the time?
16. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, yeah, like we sent Evan to Turkey by himself. He's going to be with Serge, but he's there by himself. And I remember your dad saying something like, I really hope this works out okay. Yeah. Well, looks like it did.
Yeah, here we are.
So, all right. So, different topic. So this is where, like I told you, I really kind of want to get into, how does Evan Turner think? Yeah. After I was done speaking with Evan during this interview, I messaged Kevin, his dad, and sent him the words that I hope that I get one day, which is, you have an extraordinary young man on your hands. You have done a very good job, and he will do well. I can think of no higher praise and no better thing for a father to hear. Evan's a good, special person, and I am very happy that I have gotten to move in his orbit a little bit. In the next one, you get to hear me act and sound like a total tool as I try to recover from a rather terrible remark I made. Hope you guys enjoy it. See you soon.